Hello and welcome to The Mohit Show. In this video, I'll be covering posts from r/detrans, a well-moderated subreddit for people questioning, desisting, or detransitioning. Now on to this video's first post, titled, What Do I Do? This is by a detrans female. So, I'm trying to be brave and tell someone, anyone, about some of my story. I'm 21 female. My story starts when I was 9. I was a bit chubby, and my memories are pretty faded now. But I can remember my mother talking to guests about my belly and how she hoped it would go away. Around 11, it did. The weight turned into height. However, with the height, I could no longer fit into my mother's shorts she would let me borrow for school. My mother, 41 female, has always been very thin, shortish, with narrow shoulders. She didn't let me forget. At 12, I was starting to grow body hair, and it was darker and coarser than hers. When I shaved and would forget to rinse the tub, she would call me a yeti, or say I was like a man. At 13, I was about 5'6" and 118 pounds. I had a note on my phone that kept track of every calorie I ate every day. It was never more than 300 in a day, partly because they wouldn't stock the fridge, and partly because of the inspiration picture at the bottom of the note. A girl that wasn't much bigger than Eugenia Cooney, a girl with a wide thigh gap. I showed my mother the note, along with the picture, perhaps as a cry for help. She said, "Good for you." At 14, my best friend came out as transgender, male to female. I also met another transgender person, female to male, around the same time. He became my boyfriend. Now, this is absolutely not a transgender hate post by any means necessary, but this information is relevant. By 15, my best friend and boyfriend had torn me down. My best friend would take her insecurities out on me and would repeatedly talk about my body. According to her, my shoulders were broad, I had a mustache, I was hairy, my breasts were saggy, my skin was horrible, my teeth were crooked, my skin was pale and ugly. Some of these things were true. My teeth were the most crooked teeth you had ever seen in your whole life. I had acne all over my face since the fifth grade. But she was supposed to be my best friend, not my insecurity fueler. My former boyfriend started doing it too. At 16, my boyfriend told me he was suddenly gay and loved me like a friend rather than a girlfriend. My best friend and him began ganging up on me by this point. I thought I loved him, and I wanted to make the pain stop. On top of this, I knew the only way I would be happy as a woman was if I could have a few plastic surgeries. I knew I could never afford them. I decided I would be trans too. At 17, I was in junior year of high school. I had a very masculine haircut and clothing. I also missed the experience of prom. Never got to pick out my dream dress or go with a date. Besides for middle school, I never had a typical high school boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. It was the day of my 18th birthday. I called a gender therapist to receive my letter for HRT. I had my first and last appointment with her a week later. She lied on my letter saying that I had been seeing her for 6 months. I've seen her one time. Another week after that, I went to see the endocrinologist, a very well-respected one. Like her, he didn't press me. I started a high dosage of testosterone injections immediately. I was on it for exactly 6 months before I snapped out of it. I began rebuilding, making friends outside of the community, going to thrift shops to start building my feminine wardrobe. As I had lost all of my clothes from my previous years from being homeless/moving around so much. I wore wigs. I wore makeup for the first time. I tried to feel normal. My best friend was still around at this time and was pressuring me to go back to being trans. The same year, I met my boyfriend, the only guy I've been with sexually. He's straight, cisgender, not even bisexual. and the relationship made me feel better, and I felt lucky to have such normalcy. I'm 21 now, and for the first time in 12 years, I have a stable living situation. And for the first time in 4 to 5 years, I look like myself. I have long hair. I'm good at makeup. And while most of my clothing is from Shein, I have lots of feminine outfits. However, I feel that I am ruined. The testosterone made problems that were already worse. Throughout the years, my teeth got straightened and my skin got a whole lot cleaner. But these are the following things which I struggle with daily. Some present before hormones and some not. Wide rib cage, broadish shoulders, not narrow, tallish, 5'7", hairy, dark coarse hair that causes severe razor bumps all over my legs no matter what I do, smallish lips, nose bump, not what's desired, enlarged clitoris, makes me want to die, skinny legs, hip dips, larger stomach, facial hair, have to do electrolysis, stomach hair below my belly button, dandruff, lots of it that's showing my back hair, black hair. Again, no matter what I do or what I use, deepish voice, periodontal disease, flat butt, 38D breasts that I know will sag one day, bad stretch marks on my stomach, I wear glasses, I'm pale and that's seen as bad, double chin even if I'm skinny. I don't know what to do with myself. I try everything I can. I always hear my mother and my best friend telling me in the back of my head how awful I look. There are people that find me attractive, but I'm not sure why. I'm constantly comparing myself to the photoshopped images on Instagram of famous models slash streamers. I know that at 21, this is probably the best I'm ever going to look, and I don't know how to live with that. Every time someone mentions Bella Poarch, Amaranth, or Kylie Jenner, I want to die. It makes me want to throw up. My boyfriend thinks I look great, and that most of this is in my head, and maybe some of it is, but it just keeps getting worse. I'll only be young for so long. Why can't I be beautiful like the women that are praised? Why can't I be so beautiful that I'll never have to worry about a man I'm with looking at another woman? Now, from the comments, from a detrans female, the women that you said make you want to die, I'm sorry, but they look like pure plastic. It isn't fair to compare your natural self to women who are spending copious amounts of money on their image. Try a social media detox. Another detrans female comments, hi, I feel the need to comment because weight was a big factor in convincing myself I was trans. I've been heavy since like age 5 and deeply hated everything about being fat. I wanted clothes that fit and framed me differently. I wanted a haircut that framed my face differently. So much about hating my body and my breasts and hips and wanting muscles were about being fat. I wanted to be seen and I wanted to be loved and I wanted to express my sexuality and I couldn't where I was. I'm sorry you're still really insecure. The truth is, I am too. Almost nothing from testosterone left a permanent effect on me, except for my clit and a negligible amount of hair. These things don't bother me, but I understand why they bother you. But I've had a few hookups, and guys are almost never bothered by my clit. My body hair is also not really noticeable, but I do have a significant amount of chin hair, which is also easy to hide if I shave. It's only a real problem if I'm cuddling with someone and my chin scratches them. But I still hate being fat. I've always had a flat butt and broad shoulders too, and have always carried most weight in my stomach and have smallish hips. I also have large hands with square fingernails, thin lips, and a nose on the side. A jaw on the bigger side. Awesome when I was trying to pass. Now I'm neutral about most things. It would be nice to be prettier, but I'm also content with my appearance, aside from the weight, I guess. I know how deep the pain goes with weight, and obviously the lengths I will go to try and improve my appearance. Many of your problems can be easily fixed. Dandruff can be managed by medicated shampoo. You can get contacts, better toothpaste slash other medicine for your gums. Going to the gym and lifting weights can help you a lot. You won't get bulky unless you try really hard. I've been lifting weights for over a year, and I don't look bulky. Although I do have some muscle now. The most important part about the gym is that it helps you feel good from the endorphins and more connected to your body, which improves confidence more than weight loss ever could. The secondary effect of looking more toned is a nice plus. Leg presses have helped my butt from being a Hank Hill butt to a just okay butt, which feels much better. The lifting community and also knowing how many female lifters are out there can also help normalize having a wide back, etc. for you. Truthfully, your muscles may be different looking from T, but there are a lot of muscly girls out there and they look great. My ex was a gymnast and she had a lot of muscle. It's more normal than you think. Also, you can tan. My boyfriend kind of encouraged me. A Planet Fitness membership for $20 a month will get you gym time and you can use their tanning beds at the same time. Best deal on earth. That being said, if you do electrolysis, you have to stop tanning. So be mindful about that. Groupon can get you laser treatments you may need for cheap as well. I'm getting treatment for my chin, and that's it. It's super quick and easy. The actual self-esteem part is, of course, the hard part. Maybe you can see a therapist to help out with your insecurities. Follow fat people slash models on Instagram who are constantly showing off their stuff. Look up Instagram posts about body neutrality too, and a diet-free body neutral exercise Instagram posts. Yoga may help you connect with and respect your body, and just enjoy the movement. Feeling like you have to worry about your man liking something else is a problem most women have. Probably even the beautiful ones. You need to trust in the loyalty in your relationship and the love and commitment you share, while learning to love and respect your body and take care of it. If you're confident about your body, your partner is that much more likely to appreciate it. And of course, I have to add, all the features described seem like pretty normal features to me, and in my view, I don't think there's something imperative to go and take action to fix. Seems pretty much like a normal girl. Now on to the next post, titled, How do you feel about the trans community or gender ideology or whatever you want to call it? This is by a detrans female. Because I'm pissed. I don't know what to believe anymore. I just feel like it's a big scam for a plastic surgeon to have a job. And everyone around me is like, well, you chose it. Yeah, like some chose to be in cults. I still feel lied to. Maybe I should stop feeling like that. I know, I'm still pissed. Now from the comments. From a detrans individual. To qualify, I'm a person with medical interventions, including surgery, and I'm infertile from it. So that's where I come from. I think it's an insane medical scandal. Society is allowing people with a terrible mental illness unfettered on-demand access to extremely crude yet extremely profitable medical procedures with failure and complication rates that would be unacceptable if they were being done to any other segment of society besides the mentally ill, the gender non-conforming, and the gay. The fact that these practices are now extended to giving children non-evidence-based medications that cripple them intellectually, emotionally, physically, sexually, and reproductively for the rest of their lives is going to be looked back on as tantamount to Nazi shit, and that, in my opinion, is absolutely correct. Yes, I acknowledge that I myself made choices to accept a very stupid physical treatment for my mental illness, but A, there was a huge and vocal online community telling me telling me I had to or I would die. Mostly online leftists. And B, there's a huge activist establishment behind this because doctors did not decide en masse to offer non-evidence-based care on their own and with no outside influence. While I accept that transition treatment can be successful for some people, though the research is not there to prove that it is successful enough to be a standard of care, I do resent the community and I don't care who knows it. Another comment from a desisted male. I'm always open to be convinced otherwise, but everything I have seen and researched in the last few years has made me come to the conclusion that gender ideology is extremely regressive and harmful, especially to the newer generations of children and teenagers. I've learned so much in the last years and seen things I wish I could unsee. It terrifies me that an ideology slash movement with such flawed premises and arguments can proliferate in this manner. That being said, if adults want to surgically modify his/her body to visually present like the opposite sex, you do you. And a desisted person replies to that, if being a flat earther had $200 billion wrapped up in its industry, we would be talking about that instead of this. Major powers and money all came together to create the perfect storm to fuel the raging fire we have here. I can only hope some lessons will be learned, but I have a feeling it's just going to be something else 20 to 30 years from now. Our desisted male comments on the original post, it hurts a lot of people. This kind of narrative is just being pushed by political corporations only caring about money and not for the person. A desisted person comments, it seems like a trans community doesn't even recognize the overwhelming pull it has today. I'm convinced that the only reason I didn't transition in my early 20s is because it wasn't really a thing then. Maybe I would have been happy with my transition, but I'm happy now with not being transitioned, and I don't think I would be in this place if I was born 20 years later than I was. It's really a bit unfortunate to catch 22. It's really a bit of an unfortunate catch 22. How do you support kids who would actually be well served by transitioning before puberty without severely harming those who are going through a phase? How do you ensure people truly do due diligence to work through their gender related issues without gatekeeping those who actually will be happier with said changes? I wish there was one answer that served everyone, but it seems like no matter which direction you go, someone's getting hurt. And the original poster replies to this, you're so right. When I was within the community, I always felt like trans people didn't have enough right, that we were oppressed, and the cis world was against us. Now that I'm out, I feel like trans activists are just bullies without any real purpose. Yeah, this is a tough question. Now, a desisted female comments, gender ideology is a cancer to the community. No one takes LGBT people and honest transsexuals seriously anymore. It's just a movement of thinly veiled misogyny, where cis women and female to males get treated like shit while male to females are babied and dominate all spaces despite crying about being the most oppressed. I was done after being told I've been lying about the abuse I experienced at the hands of my male to female ex because assigned female at birth people always falsely accused trans women and was called trans misogynistic for it. I was also told not to talk about my rapist because it would contribute to trans misogyny. These people are a joke. And the desisted male replies to that, yeah, it's pretty messed up how people in the trans community refuse to hold problematic people in it accountable. Some people seem more upset at others for misgendering someone than at said person for committing serious crimes. Now, a desisted female comments on the original post. I'm over all of it, honestly. I think the ideology is a cult, a sexist, regressive cult. I think the doctors who push medical transition should have their licenses revoked for malpractice. I think these people with pronouns in their social media bios but don't intend to transition medically are performative assholes looking for woke points. I'll be glad when society looks back on this the same way we look back on stuff like the Satanic Panic and lobotomies. A desisted female comments on the original post. Resentment. I can only speak to the communities I engaged with online and in college. Hate how I was viewed with suspicion and disdain when I was just a lesbian woman. But everyone changed their tune and became uncomfortably pandering and hugboxy when I started identifying as trans. Don't like how the community validated my extreme self-hatred and the notion that my body was my enemy and source of suffering. Don't like how people tried to set me up on dates with others I wasn't interested in, like I was property to be given away. Don't like how I was sexually harassed and everyone turned a blind eye and no one ever lifted a finger to support me. Don't like how the community turned a blind eye to misogyny and refused to acknowledge misogyny as a real source of trauma. Don't like how they encouraged panopticon-like inter-community policing and public shaming/bullying. Didn't like how I felt like every part of my being was being scrutinized through the lens of gender when I wanted to escape the hell of gender altogether. Most of this isn't really unique to the trans community, but the thing I resent the most is how gender discourse has infected every other community, hobby, and group I've ever been part of. So now there's literally no peace from being reminded of gender, which is distressing. A detrans female comments, I'm supportive of trans people, however, I understand that therapy should be sought before medical transition. If I had proper therapy and really addressed why I felt transitioning would be good for me, I think things would have been different. I don't want to resent the trans community, but I wish medically transitioning had been harder for me to attain personally. I'm just glad I didn't go through with the surgeries I had intended to get. And the detrans female comments, the trans community makes me angry, but what I can't get over is the medical side of it. How on earth are these educated doctors and surgeons doing this to people? I was 18 and given one appointment with a pediatrician that ended with a prescription to testosterone. Yet we're going to say that there's no rush to medicalization? In what other scenario do we just hand an 18-year-old girl steroids and say, good luck? Where's the accountability for all of us who have been done severely wrong by trans medicine? I could go on, but we all know the story here. Now on to the next post, titled Rant. This is by a detrans female. So, I'm female to female, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't regret transitioning. I was off T for a few years and I had top surgery, so I have to deal with the consequences every day now. Facial hair, body hair, receding hairline, deep voice, no boobs. I don't know how to accept this. I can't even look at myself in the mirror most of the time. I mostly ignore how I look because it just drives me crazy if I let myself care too much. Now from the comments, a detrans female comments, I feel a lot like I'm being punished every day for the decisions I make as a kid. I also try not to think about it, but I know how hard it is to try to ignore it all some days. I regret it all too. I'm sorry. Another detrans female individual comments, I'm so sorry. I don't think I'm in a place to give you advice because I too am very depressed and regret my transition. I'm so sorry you're going through this too, but please know you're not alone. We're in this together. We can be strong together. And another detrans female individual comments, going through the same thing right now. I feel your pain. Now on to the next post. Title, I think trans ideology could be a form of final defense against deviancy. This is via desisted male. I spent a couple years questioning some due to social pressure from ignorant people who cared about me. Then about a year coming to terms with being trans, then a few months thinking I'm trans. Now I've spent a year coming to terms again with just being a unique man since I realized what a shit show that all was mentally. I was fine with being a unique man. Then as soon as I opened the can of worms to, no, it means I'm actually a girl, my peace of mind went completely to shit. I lost all the progress I'd made in coming to accept / understand myself, and now I have to start over from square one. Traditional gender roles are a man-made construct, and gender roles are abstract and imaginary. People who cared about me kept telling me they thought I was trans because I didn't fit the perfect male role. My interests didn't align with most men's. My ideas didn't align with most men's, etc. And eventually, with nowhere to turn to, nothing to believe in, I decided to entertain the big idea. A big mistake. I still dress the way I want, I still act the way I want, but I'm a man. I have an XY chromosome, and that'll never change. I don't have to appropriate myself to being a female just to be myself. I think it's actually very close-minded for not realizing that males don't have to act / present themselves exactly like other males, and females don't have to act exactly like other females to be able to be male / female. I was on 4tran for a while, and the mental gymnastics they did to appear the gender they identify as and change their hobbies, interests, beliefs, etc. to conform Looking back, it's honestly really sad. They're denying their true selves and trying to change under the guise of embracing their identity. It's no different from incels who throw themselves out, change their hobbies/interests, and get ridiculous amounts of plastic surgery just to be more like Chad. I'm becoming convinced trans ideology is just a new creative and insidious way to crush deviancy. Gender nonconforming is great and based. Even taking hormones because it feels nice for you, no problem with it. It's telling someone they can change their gender, which is impossible, and should try to change their gender for being deviant. It's fucked. Male/female brain literally don't exist. Just because you don't fit in perfectly with your gender doesn't mean you're the opposite gender. Trans ideology has turned anti-progressive quick. I have a female to male cousin who lives on the edge of suicide every minute and has for about 10 years. And I know saying how I really feel will only be rope fuel, but I don't know how to. My whole family is completely unsupportive, and I like being supportive, but I don't know how to explain my POV on this to her without it coming across like a betrayal. I can't stay silent though. I'm gonna have to speak the truth I've found. You can't even present as what appears as a normal female, or the other way around if you wish. If it's what you want to do, 100% you should, but again, it's anti-progressive and encourages conformity. Tell someone they should start identifying as the other gender in general just for being gender non-conforming. Now from the comments. A desisted person comments, I agree. The brain studies have been shown to be debunked, and it's the only thing that tied their argument to reality. The brain studies they had were confounded by sexuality. They only tested gay trans people, as to say, so trans women attracted to men, and when it was controlled for sexuality, the straight people had a typical brain structure, which is itself a loaded word since the brain is so plastic and malleable and complex, and thus the study only showed a region of the brain that could predict gayness. I've made a long post about this male/female brain idea before because it's such a complex idea, but for now there's no evidence that trans people have a different brain. But besides that, the brain is an organ like any other. Would you tell a woman with a long torso she's a man? Would you tell a man with weak arms he's a woman? Then why would that apply for brain regions? It's just personality. Now on to the next post, titled, Anyone else feel gender ideology is basically a religion? This is by a desisted individual. 1. There's no scientific support for the trans state. In fact, there's not even good support for transitioning being beneficial. More likely it's detrimental. Link in the comments. Link in the description, sorry. 2. It's an easy way to deal with homosexuality, a way of living that doesn't make an individual as easy to deal with in a social context. Just change their gender. It's even popular in Iran, where homosexuality is a sin punishable by death according to Sharia. I have to add to this point outside of this post. Yeah, they do actually take gay people in Iran and make them transition to avoid being stoned to death. Yeah, just putting that out there. That's real. Now, 3. It's essentially also a sacrifice. You sterilize your kid and spend thousands on surgeries and live through complications, very likely settling them on the road to suicide. But also show your sincere dedication and willing to sacrifice for the ideology/faith. The realization of transness from parents, it's always years before the child can make an adult decision, but it's somehow more valued. A bit like in witch burning trials, for example, the chosen children of old. One morning we just knew that Jesus was different. One day we just knew that Joseph was Josephine. Now from the comments, A detrans female comments, well, for me, I wouldn't say it was too big, it was to deal with being gay. Back when I decided to transition, I didn't even know I was bisexual. I thought I was only interested in guys. But for me, it was to deal with being a masculine girl, and as a child, a tomboy. I wanted to not be questioned anymore. I didn't want weird looks anymore for wearing more masculine clothes or having masculine hobbies. A desisted person comments, yes, the idea that everyone has a gender identity inside of them that determines things about them is very, very reminiscent of a soul. I don't have a gender soul. I have likes, dislikes, and a personality which is a mixture of what our society would call masc and femme qualities, which are stereotypes. I'm just my sex, and my personality doesn't change that. My likes or dislikes don't change that. My jealousness don't change that. And even when I was depressed and just wanted to be the opposite sex, it still didn't change reality. It's very reminiscent of a religion to think that an unseeable, unprovable force can change reality. A desisted female comments, yes, and I'm so happy that more and more people are becoming critical towards it. It's liberating to find like minded dysphoric people like me, and I've really appreciated the male to females I've met who advocate with us for sex based rights. Trans ideology forces such a distorted view of the world that being a woman is now considered a privilege. I live in the US and we refuse to call the murder of women femicides when we're literally killed by men who feel entitled to us or are supposed to love us. But we can't talk about that because trans women are the most oppressed. Or for some inexplicable reason, female suffering gives them dysphoria. It's sick. In terms of female to males, I just feel awful with the abuse they endure in trans spaces because they're privileged men. It's so obviously misogyny being thrown at these men, but they aren't allowed to say anything about it because then they're mansplaining about their own experiences and overstepping on women's issues that, again, they literally experience. Why is the trans movement basically teaching females they can't talk about what hurts them to protect the male feelings? It's literally just a male dominated space now. It's become the same dynamic as almost any other space. Males oppressing females and dismissing their experiences. They deny reality in that many trans assigned females at birth are still are still viewed as female even when they pass as the opposite sex. Medical misogyny is a real good example. They lie that puberty blockers are harmless. They insist that gender socialization isn't real despite trans women following male patterns of violence and literally acting like men in LGBT spaces. They spread lies on trans women being murdered more than females. They lie about the fact we're primarily dimorphic species, and it's very obvious that we are. They lie about sex being a spectrum. Rare slash uncommon medical abnormalities are not a spectrum, especially when considering that most intersex people are still observed as male or female despite the condition they were born with. Honestly, what does trans ideology not lie about at this point? And replying to that, a detrans male comments, the way trans women act was always one of the biggest red flags for me that something wrong is going on. I transitioned in part to get away from men. And then I found myself in trans spaces where the trans women acted even more like the behaviors I hated in men. Seeing a sub like actual lesbians get taken over by trans women is telling. The content there is gross at times and sexual in a way women never are. But if you point it out, you're a transphobe. I've had far more trans women act sexually inappropriate to me than cis men. I say this as trans women are considering detransition, so many trans women act like the worst parts of men and seem to enjoy it. They genuinely don't seem to know how women actually are. As an aside, I do know many trans women who are perfectly normal and act like cis women, but the online community is revolting at times. And the desisted female comments on the original post, it is crying emoji. The second it moved away from being based on a mental illness is the second it became a cult. Next post, titled, My Own Voice is Killing Me. This is by a detrans female. I hate my voice. Every time I open my fucking mouth, I sound like a freak. I ruined my life with stupid decisions I made as a kid. The doctors ruined my life by allowing a barely functioning, mentally ill child with severe OCD and then undiagnosed BPD go on hormones that would completely change my body. I can manage to get the pitch of my voice up relatively decently, to the point where it's always in the androgynous or low female range on a vocal pitch app, but there's always something that seems off. It never sounds female. Always like a very high pitched, stereotypical gay male voice, or a male trying to force a female voice and failing. I'm tempted to just stop talking altogether. In my worst moments, all I want to do is tear out my vocal cords and be done with it. I'd been on T for around 2 years, although it was relatively sporadic, and I wasn't very consistent with either the gel or the shots at all. I've only just managed to get off hormones now, and the shots I was on were every 3 months. Thankfully, not a lot else has changed whistle on T. No facial hair, no facial changes, and I never went through any surgeries. I'm still only 17. I've tried watching YouTube videos like trans voice lessons, and absolutely nothing in the videos makes any sense, and I don't find them helpful in the slightest. I'm legitimately suicidal because of the decisions I made as a kid. It's all my fucking fault. I don't know how long I can keep doing this. Next post, titled The Solutions. This is by a detrans female. Okay, so I think a lot of us see a problem in our society. Some people transition without being fully informed or for the wrong reasons. Gender ideology, internalized homophobia, self-hate, gender stereotypes. Dot, dot, dot. I have two questions. In your opinion, what is the problem and what would be a solution? From the comments, someone who's desisted comments, the problem I see is that the current gender culture is being sought is about making other people validate you instead of you doing things for yourself to make you feel better. Being trans or transitioning should only be about making you feel better and alleviating some deep-seated pain that only transitioning can fix. What I'm seeing, though, is people declaring themselves all sorts of new pronouns and then being upset others aren't using them or addressing them in a certain way. Who cares, really? While it's a common courtesy to address someone how they prefer, outside of the trans community, most of the acronyms are totally unknown by the cisgendered world. My point is, if you plan on transitioning, don't do it if the only way you can be happy is if the world addresses you in a certain way. And replying to that, someone who questioned a while but didn't end up transitioning, yeah, at first people were okay with a universal they-them if we didn't know their gender, but around 2017, I began seeing a good handful of trans creators beginning to say, I don't want to be called a they-them, I am he-him or she-her. Even when people are careful not to misgender, some of those trans creators pop into my head even today. There isn't a way to know what someone goes by unless you directly ask them, which is what I believe those creators wanted from the general public. They wanted everyone in their space to directly ask them what gender they are. I don't know, but it feels weird, like they need to be personally acknowledged by others to feel validated, even if the other people are walking on eggshells regardless. This isn't healthy. There are times where people either cannot or do not want to acknowledge someone personally. We can't control those things. We can only control our reactions to it. Oh, desisted male comments on the original post. There are so many possible answers to this question, it's absurd, but mine is actually pretty simple in my opinion. My problem is rooted in the fact that sexes have stereotypes attached to them, based on socially constructed nonsense and observed behavior. Fact is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think there's much in the way of a real solution. Dismantle the concept of trans as the answer, I guess. But you can't dismantle these things fully, simply because the sexes are different. Somehow, actually, I feel like acknowledging that is part of making this okay at last. Regardless, I think my problem could have been easier to deal with if male gender nonconformity was perceived as more acceptable. But I still feel like I would have had issues simply because I still had issues with being gay, despite the fact that it's generally considered acceptable in my environment. Simply because I've always been afraid of standing out in the wrong way. Maybe it's because I was bullied as a kid, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think mine is a problem with a kind of solution. Me dealing with all this crap was my solution, I guess. And the desisted individual comments, the problem is that one's self-identity and sexual orientation slash liberation are heralded as the most important things in life, and that authenticity is the highest virtue. The solution will be to stop spreading historically bad ideas. And I'd like to add that last part, very big. The solution to a lot of problems in the world right now are to stop spreading historically bad ideas. Now on to the next post, titled, What the fuck? Came out to my and told my mum I'd quit hormones and felt better just being me, and she responded in the weirdest way possible. This is by a detransitioned male. One of the realizations I had over the past year since detransitioning that besides societal conditioning, there was one very weird parental thing that could have been part of what led me to transition. My mom would always joke that she was going to cut my penis off. Not in a sexual way, but like a really weird, jokey way. The psychology of it is probably that she only had one kid and wanted a girl but doesn't slash didn't want more kids. I told her I did have to go to the gender clinic anymore, stopped hormones a while ago, and wouldn't be progressing with my transition. She asked if I was having the op to get my bits off, and when I said no, she said, I would get the bits off, but that's just me. What the fuck? I don't feel shame or anything, and I'm happy I told her, but after reading everyone's positive experience telling family they're detransitioning, I really didn't expect my mom to say something so weird. Well, hey, at least I can share the experience for future people searching this topic. From the comments, a desisted male comments, Your mother really wanted you to be a girl and either doesn't understand the danger of sex reassignment surgery or doesn't care about the real you. And another desisted male comments, Didn't know this community existed and this is the very first post I've read. I know there's a lot of instances of these things being pushed on to especially young children, but actually reading this is mind-blowing and fucked up. Now on to the next post. Titled, Feeling Hopeless and Mad. It's like I'm watching the Titanic going towards the iceberg and I know the iceberg is there and there's time to turn around, but no one listens. That's how I feel about the left today regarding gender ideology. I know many people are going to desist or detransition, and I know the skeletons in the trans movement are going to come to light, and the right and the far right are going to use it against the LGBT population, especially against trans people who are only trying to live their lives. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm seeing this happen already. With detrans people going public and Travis Scott, Matt Walsh, and the trans siege in Ontario, I'm anxious and mad, and I don't know how it is that my own comrades on the left can't see what I'm seeing. People are already calling gender ideology cultural Marxism, although it has nothing to do with Marx. Feminists, leftists in general, and LGBT people are going to be blamed for this. Now, from the comments, a distinct female comments, feminists, most visible feminists are women too, get blamed for everything. I blame them for not letting me transition in the first place. Now I'm being blamed as a feminist for realizing they were right about me. It's part of our wonderful misogynistic culture. Now, desisted female comments, honestly, I get it. I feel dread and hopelessness when I think about the state of the LGBT community. People are becoming more aware, and many people are peaking. But I feel like it's not happening fast enough. LGBT people's rights are threatened globally, and Western discourse is just harming their efforts to be seen in a positive light by conservative leadership. I find it to be coming from a place of immense privilege to think that you don't have to prove yourself to the people who literally dictate your quality of life. I just wish the woo community will wake up and realize how much they're hurting homosexuals and not just in their own countries, but globally as well. A desisted male comments, Gender ideology has a lot to do with Marx, especially with Marcuse, Foucault, and neo-Marxism. A deleted user comments, actually no, Foucault wasn't a Marxist, and the postmodernist movement is very detrimental to material analysis. If you want to know more, here's a link which I'll put in the description. And the desisted male replies to that, I think you're an old school Marxist. I honestly respect your views if so, but it's objectively true that the postmodernist, post-structuralist views of Deleuze, Foucault, Althusser, which extrapolated the Marxist analysis in a neo-Marxist way inspired by the Frankfurt School. You might say, yes, but Marxism is materialistic, scientific, and dialectical, while postmodernism is the opposite, nihilistic, anti-scientific, and anti-Hegelian. But Marx's thought ended up being used by academically pseudo-Nietzschean who used the Marxist paradigm of structure and of the Hegelo-deterministic class struggle for creating what I call desires anarchism, which is useful to modern-day capitalism and therefore to transgender ideology. Now, I would also like to add here that transgender ideology is heavily influenced by critical theory. It is, in fact, with critical gender theory. Critical theory was created as a form of radical Marxism which abandons logical positivism, which is the cornerstone of reality, science, and having a coherent worldview. This ridiculous ideology is being taught everywhere now. I'm in college right now, and many professors I see who aren't in engineering literally study this insane delusion and are proud of it. It's this philosophical break, the fact that so much of our academia is now consumed by critical theory, which is neo-Marxism. It's Marxist, but even worse in the sense it rejects science. It's ridiculous, and this is a problem that needs to change. People need to speak out. People need to, stop taking these classes, speak out about the professors that teach these ridiculous ideas, and something needs to change. Anyways, on to this video's last post, titled, I Feel Like Shit. This is by a detrans female. I see all my friends transitioning. They don't even consider themselves trans. They just do it like someone would have a tattoo or a piercing. When I asked one of my friends why, they told me about this non-binary influencer that was so cool and how they could expand what it meant to be feminine or masculine. I'm sick of this. Trans don't mean anything anymore. And it's just impossible to have a discussion because the cognitive dissonance is so strong. I could be speaking to a rainbow wall and it would be the same. I'm so tired of seeing my female friend damaging their body to be more cool or to transcend the gender roles. No, you're not transcending anything. There's nothing revolutionary about having a beard and breasts. There's nothing cool about risking your health for a look. Some have children. Their children are so lost, it breaks my heart. One of the little girl is already identifying as non-binary. This is why I'm against all that, because it's just narrowing the possibilities for women representation. The girl doesn't have any women to identify with, just broken adults. I fear I'm going to lose my friends if I speak my mind. I feel so old. I did my fair share of mistakes. It's written all over my face. I don't want any of this anymore. I'm sick of hearing about people transitioning without even being trans. I just wished I could find a place far away from all of that. Now, from the comments, a desisted female comments, it genuinely concerns me how many children under the age of 11 are identifying as non-binary. Of course, they don't feel like a man or a woman yet. They're children. They haven't even reached puberty yet. I really do feel that this is rooted in people not conforming to stereotypical standards. I don't connect with other girls/boys, so I must be a different gender. It's extreme. It's not okay to be different anymore. There's just a new box you get shoved into if you're anything but typical. And the original poster replies to that, absolutely. It breaks my heart because to me, it's just a dehumanization of men and women as categories of people. I see it as another level of sexism, to be honest. A desisted female comments on the original post, it feels sometimes like LGBT is just a trend for some people. A desisted female comments, this is a thing I noticed about transitioning lately. I feel like it's becoming less of a solution to a medical condition, dysphoria, and more of a way to just express yourselves. Which isn't bad, but the transition you need to take hormones and possible surgery, which can leave permanent effects that can make you regret expressing yourselves in this way. And the original post replies to that, completely. I feel like it's very superficial. Like we have to look how we feel inside and change our bodies for that? But we're human. We're not supposed to be walking statements by maiming our bodies to resemble one stereotype or the other. And the desisted female comments on the original post. It's rough out here, to be honest. I don't have much advice to offer besides saying you aren't alone in this feeling. It's depressing seeing this stuff all over the place. But the good thing is, the superficial nature of it points to it being a trend, and trends always fade with time. The world won't always be like this. Now, someone who's questioning their own gender transition comments, why would anyone transition medically if they don't even have dysphoria? To be honest, most of the trans people I used to know desisted at some point. But they were never on hormones or had surgeries done because in my country, it's not that easy. You have to go to therapy and get your therapist's approval at first. I think it's absolutely insane that you can get those things so easily in America. I used to follow a model on Instagram for a while, and they came out as non-binary and filmed their process of getting T, and it was horrifying to me how easy it was for them to get it. They stopped, I think, a few weeks later because they didn't get the effects they wanted. I don't know. Shouldn't you inform yourselves about the effects of hormones before you take them? I mean, it's their decision ultimately, but I think it's scary how those TikTok people play down the effects of hormones and portray them as harmless and not a big deal. Of course, young people will see those videos that only show the bright side and get influenced by them. I don't want to be mean, but a lot of the trans men I used to follow on Instagram who were portraying this pretty anime slash alt trans boy aesthetic eventually disappeared from social media after they were on T for a while. Maybe because they couldn't maintain this aesthetic anymore. They probably just look like regular men now. Because maybe they're balding, have acne or a lot of body hair, gain weight, etc. Because that's what T actually does. And it doesn't fit into the aesthetic. I think people just don't see this side of transitioning on TikTok and think that T will make them turn into a cute anime boy or something. I certainly did think that when I was 14, lol. Also, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those things I mentioned, but they can be effects of T, and I think many of those people who transition for aesthetic reasons aren't really aware of that and eventually regret their decision. A desisted female replies to that, I'm always so confused what people think opposite sex hormones are going to do for them. If you're on T, you're going to get a patchy beard, body hair, a deep, crackly puberty voice, and the fat in your body will redistribute to the stomach and arms. When you get older, you're going to bald. If you're on E, you're going to get flabby breasts with no structure, and your jawline is going to disappear, and you're going to gain fat more easily. You're also more susceptible to anxiety and depression. I don't understand why people think opposite sex hormones are going to make them look like pretty androgynous anime characters. They won't. And the detrans male replies to that, the increased risk of anxiety and depression really hit me. I've always had anxiety, but E made it go through the roof. I'm so excited to try going off SSRIs once my hormone levels rebalance. Now a detrans individual comments on the original post. I feel you. I said it years ago, it was becoming nothing more than a fashion statement, a trend, a fad. Of course, I was called a bigot, transphobic, etc. We can only hope it fades away like most trends. Now, a detrans female comments, I hate the gendered brain argument. Cross-sex hormones are not good for your body, which in turn messes with your mind even more. I have constant brain fog. I literally feel sick on a hormonal level. T-shots always made my mood swings way, way worse. By near the end of the week, I'm depressed and lethargic until I do the next one. I'm so done with the cycle. Of course, their argument to this would be, well, then you're not actually trans. Even though I experience a lot of dysphoria and find myself very attractive as a female outside of the dysphoria and dysmorphia, I don't get to pick what's healthy for me, and I'm finally okay with that. Now, with the cisgender female comments, God, this is so tragic. I agree that all this trans stuff limits the possibilities for women's representation. Feminine can present in many ways. I have friends that are like this too. I dated a guy that didn't fit masculinity, so he decided he was a girl instead. He started deluding himself and taking the hormones, messing up his body. There's more than one way to be feminine or masculine. There are masculine women that are still women. That doesn't make a woman a man because she doesn't follow traditional feminine rules. All of this stuff is so crazy and irrational. I feel bad for children growing up in this stuff. It breaks my heart. All this does is confuse children. And that is the end. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you would like to support this channel. And make sure to have a good day.